Hey, what's going on, everybody? Well, if you're one of those that love the Trijicon TR25, we just spent some time with its successor, the Trijicon TR25 AccuPoint 1-6. Now, to see whether this updated version lives up to that classic, we're going to review it right now, so let's go.
Yo, homie, that my briefcase?
Brightness and glass. So, given that its predecessor had the brightest reticle known to man thanks to its fiber optic technology, the same should hold true for this one, right? First, when we did the TR25 review several years ago, I'll link to it if you haven't seen it, we used the triangle post reticle. Now that reticle is built for speed, so it had one glaring weakness. It did not have a BDC, and the lines below it blocked any drop hits anyway. So for this review and this TR25, we instead opted for the mill dot reticle. The mill dot reticle has drops, but the one issue is the center dot is really small at 0.18 mils. And since it's lit with fiber optic technology instead of battery, there is no spillover or blooming effect to make it look larger. So given all that, how does it look in this bright desert lighting conditions? Well, as you can see, you can still see some illumination, even though it's very small. So it's just enough illumination to provide some target separation and some contrast differences to where you can pick it up while you're shooting quickly. However, there is one big weakness in that since it's so small, if you step into any shade or top cover, you're gonna lose illumination because there's just not enough ambient sunlight to power that fiber optic. And at nighttime, you're talking tritium that light that reticle. And of course, since it's so small, really you can't see it at nighttime that well either. Now, outside of the reticle, it sits on some of the clearest glass you'll find in any LPVO. I mean, it's so clear that basically if you took it and set it side by side to some of the European glass, like the Collis, you'd have to look really closely to see the difference. I think this is the biggest separation between the TR25 and its predecessor so far. And one other thing you'll notice right away when you look through the glass is how large the field of view is on this scope. I mean, it's so large that basically the scope body tends to kind of melt away, and it's got a really large and generous eye box as well. So with those qualities combined, it makes it really easy to shoot at 1x. Even spec-wise, it exceeds a Vortex Razor, so that's really impressive. Okay, so far optically, this TR25 is performing really well and stacking up very nicely against its predecessor, TR24. That illumination thing is a little bit annoying in that I wish it was a little bit bigger, and that would have helped out a lot, but still, it's workable. So next, we're going to take a look at the externals and controls in the next section coming up. Body and controls. So starting with the first control, the adjustment turrets. Now, if you love the TR24 adjustment turrets, you're definitely gonna love this one because they're exactly the same. Now, you get covered turrets for maximum security, and they're relatively low profile, so they stay close to the scope, so they won't snag on anything. Adjustments in between are easily marked at 0.1 mils, so that's 0.36 inches at 100 yards. Now, as a reminder to reset the zero index, you just pull the turret straight up, you spin it, and then you set it back down to set the zero index mark. On the rear of the scope, you'll find the standard diopter and the magnification dial, which takes you from 1 to 6 in about 180 degrees of movement. It does come with a little throw lever that you screw in, although for this one, we are using the MK machining throw lever since it's a little bit bigger and offers a little bit more traction. The only downside of that is the MK machining is a little bit thicker. So at the bottom, your throw lever can actually hit the top of your scope mount. So if you shave off a little bit of plastic, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, as far as friction to move that magnification dial, it's not as smooth as TR24, but still moves pretty easily. And finally, on the rear top, you'll find the fiber optic adjuster. Now, the way that works is you just turn it to add or subtract the amount of fiber optic you want to expose to the sun. For the TR24 and the triangle post reticle, that made a lot of sense. At full exposure, that thing was like looking in the sun. You can barely look at it without squinting. But for this reticle, since we're using the mil dot reticle, it kind of doesn't make any sense because the mil dot reticle, as mentioned earlier, is really small. So I would just leave this open all the time. Now, along that same line, I think that the fiber optic adjuster for this version, the redesign of it, I think that was a bad idea considering the original TR24 sat really close to the tube and it worked just fine. For this one just got bigger and bulkier for really no added benefit. So one last thing you'll notice about its exterior is its weight. So it comes in about 19 ounces, so it's a bit heavier than the TR24, but still lighter than the PST or the Razor. And we have it here in a Warren Precision QD mount, but if you want max weight savings, then you can probably get an Aero Precision Ultralight. So that takes you to around 22 ounces total for, that's not too bad since you have 6X at the top end. Speaking of top end, we're going to talk about the long range reticle in the next section coming up. Long range reticle. Okay, now that we've seen how this does at short range, let's take a look at how it does at long range. Now the TR25 has a bunch of different reticles for this sight, but really for long range shooting, you only have two that are good, the mil dot and the MOA dot. So they're exactly the same reticle, they're both crosshair reticles, so the only difference between them are the subtensions between the drops. On the MOA reticle, you have 5 MOA between drops, and on the mil reticle, you have 1 mil between drops. So the MOA does go out further, but the mil reticle actually has more useful drops. They're a little bit closer together. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend the mil dot if you were to go with this optic. Speaking of drops, we'll go ahead and pull up Strelic and look at our holds. As far as ammo, we're shooting an Impact Ammo's 55 grain bullet using our Criterion 16-inch barrel. So we're clocking in about 2950 FPS and we're zeroing 100 yards. So 100 yards just for simplicity, but feel free to experiment with different zeros as you need. Now, one note about Strelic is when you're looking for this reticle, it does not have the mil dot, but it does have the MOA dot. So under reticle, you need to find the mil dot USMC reticle. From there, look under settings, make sure 1:6 is selected, and make sure first focal plane is turned off. So now that we have our holds, our next step is to test them on our known distance range. We'll be shooting at reduced size IPSCs from 200 to 400 yards. We'll shoot the circuit twice and correct for misses if need be. Max will be our shooter, so take it away, Max.
Okay, 200. Might be an inch or two low, so just top of that red circle. Hit. And now going to 300 yards. Should be pretty close here. Just a bit high. Hit. And 400 yards. I'm gonna hold about 1.5 mils. Hit. 200, dead on. Hit. 300, just high. Hit. Magneto fell off. And 400, about 1.5 mils. Hit.
All right, fellas, so what's the final verdict on this Trijicon TR25 AccuPoint 1:6? Well, it's not often that you get a sequel to a classic but now aging TR24. And just like any other sequel, it's got expectations about whether or not this is an upgrade that's worth its salt. Well, if you were to compare them feature by feature, side to side, then the answer is absolutely yes. Better glass, has a wider field of view, and of course it has more magnification. But the second part of that question is, if you're a TR24 user and you're happy with the triangle post, ideally I can't see a really good reason to upgrade the TR25 just to have a little bit more magnification. Having said that, if you can deal with the illumination limits of the mil dot or MOA dot, then I say the TR25 is absolutely worth an upgrade and it's a great optic. And that's my final verdict. Hope it helps. And if you found this video useful, please give it a like, comment, and share so the small channel can keep growing. And if you saw anything in this video that you wanted more information about, I'll leave it in the description below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys again next time.